I received a question from someone regarding a Singer Stitch So Quick and whether or not I thought they could make masks. And so I want to address the handheld stitchers and also the Model 20 in some level. I'm also going to be doing videos on hand sewing because this is really all you need. I have been using the Brother LX3014 to make masks because I could disinfect it easily. It had a problem going through when this type of mask is put together. You can see there are 6 layers of fabric that the Brother just didn't want to go through, which still surprises me, and I think it's just the way the pleat is, because I've sewn a sweater quilt with that machine. So I think it's the way the pleat is and the way the feed dogs work, and not whether or not the motor has the power. But anyway, it became annoying, so I switched to the white as a hand crank, and then I'm now using the Spartan as a hand crank. I took the motor off the Spartan because these are kids' masks, and the Spartan is very fast, and I want more control with a hand crank. So, but let me tell you, the only thing you need, anyway, let me back up. So I thought, well, maybe I better look for or keep my eye out for another Brother in case mine has made too many masks and I wear it out. This is really all you need to sew. This is a vintage sewing kit. You need needle and thread. And I'm going to be doing videos on this because let's start with the Model 20. When you, back when Singer marketed Model 20s, little Model 20s, they sold them as light-duty household or children's machines. The whole lesson, they give you a booklet with lots of sewing tips and sewing basics, but the lesson is that you're going to either need to do something by hand or get a bigger machine. It was a selling aspect, a marketing tool that they used, that this is great, but it'll only do so much and you're going to want to do more. But what we can take from the Model 20 is some of the instruction in the book is that it lists that it will accept all of these take, 3 of them take DHX1 or 24X1 needles. And the Model 20 can take sizes 11, 14, or 16, meaning, and it has a chart in the booklet on the different fabrics, the thread, and the needles, meaning this machine can handle heavier fabrics by going up to a size 16 needle. Well, now pretend that you live in Ireland in the famine and you can't buy a sewing machine. All you need is a needle and thread. And then relative to that, they give you needles in here. In almost every sewing kit they give you needles. And usually they give you 3 sizes of needles so that you can hand sew through any of light, medium, or heavy fabric. And I'll cover this more in another video, but this is the Sunbeam Sewing Kit that I paid $9.99 for. It's really all you need because you're the machine. You are the machine. So 12 bobbins of thread, about altogether at least 20 spools of thread, pins, snips, tape measure, hooks and eyes, safety pins, seam ripper, snaps, $9.99. You keep one of these in your pocketbook and you can sew anything. Let me just turn this off for a moment. So I'm thinking, okay, I go and look for another Brother, and all of a sudden Walmart and other stores are sold out of inexpensive sewing machines. They had a few of the more expensive ones, but your basic $100 sewing machine wasn't available. So I'm thinking, okay, I have antiques. I have just about any kind of sewing machine you could want or need, but what are other people going to do? So then someone asked me about the Singer Stitch Sew Quick, which is very similar to the Handy Stitch I have here. And these are great, but the first clue to whether or not it's going to be able to do your sewing project is what size needle does it take. So both the Sun manual handheld and this Handy Stitch, they take the same 24x1 needles, size 14, which means that they are meant for medium weight fabric. Now, this is a Dexter, a vintage Dexter handheld, and I was able, these take a vintage needle called size 40F1, but I can get those in size 16. And our fabric that we're testing things on today is denim. So, denim is more of a heavyweight fabric and not a medium weight fabric, and the lesson we're taking from the Model 20 is not really can the Model 20 make a mask, because I'm sure with a size 16 needle it would go through layers. It may not go through 6 layers of denim. So it can be one of the shortcomings of the Model 20, where it's probably really meant to go through like 2 layers. So pleats, and the fact that most face masks are pleated in some way, is kind of creating a little bump in the road. So here is the Sun manual handheld, regular vintage thread on a bobbin, and 2 layers of denim with a size 14 needle. And the reason I'm making the video this way is because this is what you need to test at home. Whatever handheld stitcher you have, and whatever thread you have, you need to find some denim, and I ended up pulling it out. Find scrap pieces of denim and see if the machine will do the job you need it to do. Now, I've already done some tests with these. I haven't done a lot with this because it almost depends on your strength. If, say, you're 80 and your hand strength is not that great, it won't matter what the needle can do. But I bet you can use a thimble and force it through the fabric by hand. So I haven't done a lot of testing with that, but I have tested these two. And out of the two, the Dexter and the Handy Stitch, the Dexter went right through the elastic and 2 layers of denim without a problem. Without a problem, not a skip stitch, not anything. So now let's do the same thing with the Handy Stitch, because when I did this before with the Handy Stitch, now here's the advantage of the Handy Stitch over the Singer Stitch Sew Quick. This takes a 24x1 needle, which is shorter, and the Singer Stitch Sew Quick takes a regular sewing machine needle, which is a little bit longer. So with 2 layers of denim and elastic, the Handy Stitch gives you a little bit more room to get it in there. And I always have, I have to hold this a little differently to lift out that plate. When I'm not trying to make a video, it's not an issue. And it's not quite in there as far as I wanted it. Now with the Singer Stitch Sew Quick, getting it under like that is going to be a little bit more difficult. I'm going to leave the pin in there, and let's see what it'll do. No, it's the batteries. Okay, so I've gone through the denim, over the elastic, over the pin, and did it do it, is the question. And I don't want to rip out the stitches. Well, see, I didn't get it in there straight, so the bottom layer of denim folded it over. But see how that's a little bit messy? Let me do it again on another piece of fabric. But even 2 layers of denim and a strip of elastic is not the same as 6 layers of fabric and pleats. So okay, now I've got it set up. Now you hear that click it made, and that's because it hit something that it didn't like. And it broke on the elastic. So it kept moving. So in the long run, a handy stitch or a Singer Stitch Sew Quick is going to be a little bit frustrating for making any kind of a mask. This is why Singer's original message with the Model 20, that you might want to get a bigger machine or do it by hand, is actually a true lesson, because you can fiddle with a handy stitch or a manual stitcher, or you can just do it by hand. There's the Sun manual on the top and on the bottom. Still a little bit messy, but it did go through it. The easiest one was the Dexter. Now, as I said, you can find the old needles. Now, see how the tension has loosened up. And this is what I want to explain about the Dexter. You need to put the spool on there so that the thread leads from the front, and then it goes down through a hole and threads the needle. What happens with the Dexter, whether no matter what you're sewing, is whatever direction the spool moves in, it moves the tension just a bit. It may take a half a seam for it to do that. Now, I think by putting beeswax on the end of the screw before I put it in, that would solve that problem. But that's the one design flaw I find with the Dexter, is that you then have to retighten your tension and keep going. Now, when I had it tight, I don't know where it went now, and first went through the elastic, right here on that blue stripe is a little bit of white stitching. When I had the tension correct, it went through it without a problem. It's because it's got a longer size 16 needle. But because of the design and the fact that the tension might loosen up, you can see how all of these, with making a mask or several layers, might become frustrating, and that you might end up saying, you know what, it's faster to do it by hand. So this is the fitted mask, and I have made a fitted mask where I had one at this point where it's right sides together. You have to go around most of it, turn it right side out, and then top stitch it. I did do this part with a handy stitch. These are also the average fabrics you would be using for a mask. The blue is a cotton, and this is muslin. And the test for your fabrics is, can you blow through them? If you can blow through them and feel air come through, it's not thick enough for a mask. It's not woven tightly enough. So, test it on jeans or 2 layers of denim with elastic. I won't get into the threads right now because most new thread should work in any of these applications. And then test it on a scrap piece of your actual fabrics before you try to go ahead and do it. Simply because you don't want to end up frustrated. So here's 2 layers of denim, and then if I'm going to make a pleat, that's what you're trying to go through. And common sense tells you that even doing it by hand, that's not going to be good. The other thing you could do is stitch the whole thing with a handheld stitcher, and then once you turn it right side out and you're going to put the pleats here, you could just do the pleats by hand. But you're going to have to test out your own machine, whatever machine you have. The rule and the lesson here is, what size needle does it take, what size thread does it recommend, and what type of fabric is it meant for. That's really the lesson from Singer's History and the Model 20. Before you even get to tension or using embellishment threads or anything like that. And this is why I'm going to end up pushing hand sewing, because when you thread a needle and do a simple running stitch through this, you know it's not going to fall apart. You just know it's not going to fall apart. When you reinforce things, you do a couple of back stitches. I mean, it's just so simple. It's just also that we are geared in our society to think that we need a machine to do things. So there is just a kind of a quick overview. Just so you know, the Model 20, this has a size 11 needle in it right now. And even that broke. So overall, I think that if you try to make face masks with handheld stitchers, unless you want to use a dexter and be aware that you might have to keep tightening the tension, most of them are just going to end up being frustrating, even on a lighter weight fabric, because when I did that one, the other one with the handy stitch, it zips right along, and you have curves and angles, and you need to leave an open space down here for turning. On a regular pleated mask, you have layers. So you're going to have a layer like that in the middle of the pleated mask. I think that if your 2 choices are a handheld stitcher or doing it by hand, I think you should just go through your drawers and find your old vintage sewing kit, or the next time you're at CVS or Stop and Shop, $4, and all you really need is a needle and thread.